Hey, John here, and we're going to do Indiana Jones and the Five Lost Albums. I figured I'm going to pick 5 albums that I think are really good that don't get a lot of credit. And I saw Indiana Jones last week, and I thought that was a really good movie, and people are knocking it or slagging it, but I had a lot of fun. Maybe I'm biased because I grew up with it, but I thought the Indiana Jones was really good. And then I thought of this record, and I put together this whole stupid idea. But this is the album Raiders of the Lost Dub. And this is a fantastic dub reggae record. Probably my favorite of them all. This is 1981 on Island Records. And I don't know if a lot of people know this. I know Doug from Fat City Vinyl got the reissue and he showed it not that long ago, but I want to talk about it. This is probably my favorite dub record. And I'm not the biggest dub reggae guy, but I like the Super Apes. I like Scientist. And there's a lot of stuff I don't have, but I've heard. But this record, to me, is the perfect one because it's that perfect crossover in 1981 where the 70s stuff and the Lee Perry stuff is sometimes dark and primitive sounding and a little almost like spooky or kind of just off sounding. And the modern stuff is way too digital electronic to me. And this is the crossover of both worlds. And it's really a fun sounding, I can't say happy because dub sometimes is a little darkish, but it's a very, I don't know, it's a very easy feeling on my ears. And it's most of these dub mixes were by Sly Dunbar and Robbie Shakespeare. So it's Sly and Robbie stuff, Prince Jammy, and the songs they're doing are all like or mostly reggae hits from the late 70s, early 80s, like Black Uhuru and Wailing Souls. So you might recognize some of these songs because they were around. They had like, I think the early 80s, the Grammys, Black Uhuru were pretty big. And you might recognize like The Man Next Door, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, or Sensimilla. And even though these songs, the dub versions, they're not as recognizable, but they're cool. And all the sounds on here, the electronic sounds and the sound effects are all familiar to my ear. They're all sounds I grew up with. Like the electronic tricks and stuff and the studio tricks are all stuff that are for my ear, my age, because this brings me back to 81. It reminds me of like the sounds you'd hear in an arcade, in a roller rink in the early 80s. The aesthetic, like the look, the artwork reminds you of those Choose Your Own Adventure series novels when you were a kid. And obviously the whole Indiana Jones stuff. He's actually Indiana James. But it's a very nostalgic sounding record, even though I never heard this record when I was a kid. If that makes any sense. Someone who's older is probably going to dig the earlier dub. Someone younger is not going to be nostalgic for this era, but this is perfect. This is a perfect dub record, man. Put it on in the background, turn it up, kicks ass. If you want to listen to it in the front ground and pay attention, really groovy. But great songs. Renamed all the songs as they usually do. Indiana James, Whip That Tarantula, my favorite song title, The Monkey is a Spy, Dub of Gold, Convoy Hijack, Pit of Snakes, all the Indiana Jones references. But maybe I'll put a sample in. I might try to edit and put samples in, but if not, you could figure it out. And I know this is reissued, so you shouldn't have a hard time getting it, but it's worth its weight in gold.
Need some more digging. I'm gonna dig a little.
Also from 1981, way across the halfway across the world anyway, Baltimore, Maryland, we got Kicks. 1981, this is a great record, and don't let the cover fool you or the name. This is not a heavy metal record. It's not a glam rock, hair metal, whatever you want to call it. This is a working rock and roll band, from an American rock and roll band. And this is the type of band that had to play the clubs through the 70s, carry their amps, drive their van to these bars, play for beer money, no money, whatever it was, and work their way till they earned got a big enough following, earned a record label. Not to be confused with all those bands from the mid to late 80s that would make a demo, send it to an A&R, play a showcase show, get signed, make the video, and get big. This band's in the same vein as like the Twisted Sisters, the Van Halens, the YNTs, the working bands. And to describe their music, I'd say it's hard rock and roll, but it's like AC/DC, a little Cheap Trick, and a little My Sharona. They have kind of power pop hooks, catchy choruses, and not because they were into power pop, it's just the sound of the time. And if you want to entertain the people in the bar, you better bring the songs. And I love every song on here. I think it's a solid 9 songs. I think they're all solid. They all have catchy choruses, but some of them do sound a bit like My Sharona meets AC/DC, The Itch or Poison. But this is a working band, and I'm not going to say this is a great album. This should be ranked in Rolling Stone magazine. But I'm going to say this is a good band with good songs who could play really good, and they put out a good album. So this is just a solid piece, nice time capsule of American rock and roll band from the early 80s. Highly recommend this, and the second album's almost as good. But before all the rules and the heavy metal and the hair rock stuff, this is just you went to a bar and you want to see a rock band, this is what you got. Now this record, I know I got this a year ago, whatever. I showed it, I might have played it on a live stream, but I'm going to mention it again in case people didn't get it, who this is for. I'm not recommending this to everyone, but you'll know if you're into this or not. This is the Ramblers from Germany, 1978, their debut album. I knew nothing about them. I bought this as a blind buy because it was cheap, and this is way better than it has any right to be for a German band in 78 to be this hip and have this great a sound and this many good songs. There's like 13, 14 songs on this album, and I'd say just about all of them. Maybe there's 1 or 2 that are a little less filler, but you're getting 12 songs that are just great. And this is a total like East Coast early punk, proto-punk, power pop kind of sound, but like tough guy, not tough as in like fist fight, but just street sounding. And definitely put it in with the Ramones, the Real Kids, the Tough Darts, just that East Coast kind of Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers, but they have a bit of British punk rock influence, and they sound like a little bit, the vocalist sounds like Chris Bailey from the Saints. So even the first Saints record I'd throw in, and they just have the look down, like it doesn't look like a clueless German band. They actually look like a legit, they got the look down right. It's hard to see. New York shirt. They just look 1977, 78, and this is how they sound. And this is on Crystal Records from Germany, and I believe you can get this record pretty cheap. And if you're into that sort of sound, I highly recommend this. And this is the Ramblers. And maybe I'll put a clip in. We'll see if I can. Now we're going to go, this is a sleeper record. It was big on the scene. I think it got radio play, and I just never seen it showed in the vinyl community. And this was big. I've seen this guy a few times. This tour was great. This is 2010, and this is J.D. McPherson, Signs and Signifiers. And this is one of the best rock and roll records from the 2000s, traditional rock and roll records. It's a bit Chicago blues sound and a little jump blues sound, but put into the rock and roll vein. So it has that like Little Richard, Chuck Berry thing, but you still have the Willie Dixon bass and all originals, I believe. Every song is really good. You'll hear they kind of base it off like Bo Diddley, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Little Richard especially, but they take it and it's their own thing, and it's White Cats, obviously influenced by black music. They're not trying to pretend to sound this way. They're just coming out, maybe a little rockabilly in the guitar playing. And this was all recorded on analog equipment, tube amps, tube mixers, and it was all done analog, and it sounds at fantastic instrument sounds, but the songs are killer. But I know North Side Girl was a minor hit, and this is on High Style Records. I think this one's out of print. There's the band, the great Jimmy Sutton. He produced it, recorded it, and he's the bass player. Fantastic. One of the best bass players, you know, in that Willie Dixon style. I've seen him in a few different bands. But this was reissued on Rounder Records, so you should be able to get it. But really underrated record for the 2000s. And I can't see too many people not liking this record. This is a party record to put it on. Not completely wild, but this is a dancer. This is the one the chicks like. Last record is the sleeper of them all. I know Greeno will agree with me. I think this record should have been huge, this band. This is the Rock City Angels. Another band that's kind of from that glam era, but there's so much more than that, than that glam hair thing. These guys came out on Geffen on the heels of Guns N' Roses, but obviously they were doing their thing, not influenced by Guns N' Roses, although the back cover is kind of like the same kind of Appetite for Destruction shot. But these guys are so much more Americana, rock and roll. And you'll hear some heavy metal stuff in here, but it's not metal, it's rock and roll. And the opening track, is it the opening track? Yeah, Deep Inside My Heart. It's like a killer. They took the whole John Lee Hooker groove, the Green Onions groove, and they did it like rock and roll, glam rock and roll. They're almost the Hanoi Rocks of America, I would say. And this is a double album, and I think this is still pretty cheap. People don't know about this, or maybe they just don't like it. But the promo copy is out there often, but that's just a single album. You need the double album, because side 3 has some really killers on there, and side 4 is just a 45 RPM version of their kind of like funky soul number they do in here. And they're kind of, in a way, they're not a great band, but they're so damn confident. They're sloppy. They don't get everything right. They go for the cliches, but it doesn't sound fake or phony. This is a very authentic band doing what their influences are and bringing it out. It's very much like a Hanoi Rocks, where Hanoi Rocks weren't a perfect band, but they had these great influences and they tried really hard. And even if Michael Monroe's like off key or the guitar's sloppy, the song's a little ham-fisted, it still works because they were the real thing. And I'd say Rock City Angels real thing too. And I believe Johnny Depp was in this band early on. He had left before this record. But awesome gatefold. And they go through the cliches, but they own them. they have like a ballad, so it's like Wild Horses, and if you listen to it, it's brilliant because there's no song to it. They don't really have a song, but they have all their ideas. They got the slide guitar, they got a couple of those lyrics that, the sad Wild Horses kind of lyrics. Then they have the female vocals, and they do all the cliches, but it just works. And you could kind of laugh at the song. It's not really there, or a lot of the stuff, but it works. The South of the Borders, their Mexican style song with the mariachi sound, and it's fantastic. It's kind of like what How I Rocks failed at getting on the Million Miles Away. They actually get it, but what was I going to say? They have this like kind of full, like funky soul number, and you could tell exactly their influences. It's like Edwin Starr, War, Heartbreaker by the Rolling Stones, and then like the midsection of Miss You, like Walking Around New York City, like and they got all the cliche lyrics, but the singer is so damn confident and so loud and upfront that it really works. He has more confidence. He's up there with like David Lee Roth. Like for a debut, to have a singer this confident is rare. You put him in with like David Lee Roth or Axl Rose, because even like the Mick Jagger, Robert Plant, and Daltrey, they had to work a few albums before they get their confidence. These guys don't have the chops, don't really have the songs, but they have the confidence, and it's just so cocky of a record. And this, I don't know what I'd rate this record, but as far as me listening to it, I had this thing cranked, and I played all four sides, and I'd give this 10 stars as far as listening. It's so much fun. Even if you could hear things that are like, oof, like, that's not quite right, or I know what you're going for, it's been done. But they just do it. They do it and they don't care. And I think this record is awesome. The Rock City Angels. Maybe I'll play a sample. And this pisses on all those like Faster Pussycats, all those hair bands, because it's so much more American, classic, I don't know, rock and roll than all those cliche hair bands. But I dig it. I highly recommend this record, and it's produced fantastic. Who did this? Who knows? I don't even know. I'm not even going to pronounce. Tom Zitaut. But this record sounds great. Cranking it up. But definitely get the double album. That's my 5 lost albums, Indiana Jones, la da da. And maybe I'm going to put some samples in, then it'll make it 20 minutes. We'll see if I can edit and do all that work. Cheers, everybody.